Thank you guys for joining us today. The goal of today's meeting is to get into how to sell managed IT with AccessOne, why you should sell it. But just to set a couple of ground rules, or just not necessarily ground rules, but things that can help enhance the meeting. You do have the ability to ask questions live. The chat is being monitored, and so we'll be able to answer and address questions. We will also have a Q&A portion at the end of today's presentation. So feel free to keep that in mind as well. But our agenda today is real simple, right? We're talking managed IT. We're talking about cybersecurity. We're talking about managed networks and managed systems. And so we're going to touch on a couple of things. Like, number one, why should you sell it? What's the value? Why is it important for the partner community to really understand how managed IT works and how to sell it to your customers? We'll get into what do customers buy? What are the products? What type of things are available in the marketplace, and what are customers looking at to purchase? How do you spot the signals? How do I know when my customer is interested? What questions should I ask? What objections are going to come up, and how do I handle them? And most importantly, when I identify an opportunity, what are the next steps? So that'll all be discussed today through our webinar, and should be, about half hour, 45 minutes or so, I think, amount of content. But as kind of we mentioned at the top, feel free to raise your hand, ask questions, drop something into the chat. We're happy to answer and engage in real time. So getting in, one of the questions that we get all the time is, why should I sell managed IT? And our answer to that is very simple. It's the same amount of effort as any other sales cycle, but your ROI is 4 times higher. Selling managed IT doesn't require more effort than what you are already doing today. The sales cycle looks the same, 2 to 3 month sales cycle. And the activities are usually the same as well. You still have to prospect. You still have to build the relationship, have to ask questions, present solutions. The key to all this is your effort is exactly the same, but the outcome is dramatically different. And this is where the ROI conversation begins. You as an agent can make 4 times the revenue selling managed IT solutions than selling voice, data, or hardware. So getting into a scenario, right? Let's take an example of a 100 user company, right? If you sell a voice solution, typically, if it's a UCaaS solution or it's a Teams voice or something that a lot of agents are selling, you're looking at a per user cost of roughly $20 per user, and so your MRR works out to be about $2,000. Managed IT is a much higher per user cost for companies, and you go from a company spending $20 a user to spending $80 a user. So you've taken your MRR up from a $2,000 MRR to an $8,000 MRR at a very similar residual payout across most of the distributors. And it's for the same sales cycle, it's for the same effort, the same customer that you uncovered, but the revenue is 4 times the potential. And that's the opportunity that we're here to talk about today, is how you guys as agents can make more money by focusing on managed IT. Not completely focusing on managed IT, right? But as making it a part of the offering that you have for your customers. The second reason why you should sell it is that the demand already exists. And we got some stats up here for you on the screen, but a couple of big ones, right? Security and compliance. There's a Gartner article that came out, and it's expected that global security spend is going to hit $213 billion in 2025. In 2024, it was already $193 billion for global security spend. And it's only going to continue to tick up in 25 and 26. Companies across the board are experiencing a gap in skills and staff shortages. ISC published a report that said there's almost a 4.8 million person gap in the cybersecurity workforce. Cybersecurity also includes IT. And 57% of organizations say that their IT staff they don't have enough people. There's not enough people to support the organization. And if you've worked with customers, I'm sure you've seen that. Talking about risk and ransomware. Sophos published a study that said nearly half of the endpoints out there are affected by ransomware. And so the demand already exists, right? And so that's from a executive level, what that looks like. Kind of getting into some of the more specifics, things that impact customers, downtime. You've got a hybrid workforce with more SaaS applications than they've ever had before. You've got a shift in expectations. 84% of MSPs are now managing cybersecurity for their clients, whether it's they're managing it well or they're managing it poorly. The MSPs are already in there. But the big stat here is from Spiceworks, and it's that 95% of companies already have some sort of a combination of in-house and outsourced IT. There are very few that rely on just one approach. And so the demand already exists in the marketplace. The ROI is higher, and the benefit of being a trusted advisor and a channel partner is that you already own the relationship. The customers already know you, they already trust you. More than likely have sold them something already. So it's a very easy pivot, as we're going to show you here throughout this presentation, to take the relationship that you have with the knowledge that you already have that you may not even realize you already have, and turn that into an opportunity to create ROI for you as an agent, but also to help generate an ROI for the customer by showing them why a managed IT or an outsourced IT solution makes sense for them. And so that's the why, right? So getting into the what are companies currently outsourcing? So let's connect the dots a little bit here. We hear a lot of customer frustrations. We hear a lot of business needs. And we are already talking to customers about the kinds of services that they're outsourcing to both here at AccessOne and to some of our competitors. Most companies aren't looking to build all this in-house. And when I say all this, we're talking about managed networks, right? Talking about managing their firewalls, their switches, their access points. We're talking about the wide area network, right? SD-WAN, the circuits that they're purchasing across the board. A lot of that is already being outsourced, and there's a combination of management because they don't want to build it all in-house. Same when we get into the systems that they have, right? You're talking about servers and storage and disaster recovery, both prem-based as well as cloud-based, is some sort of a combination, including their help desk, right? Handling tier 1, tier 2 support, patching the workstations, and keeping everything updated. But the big thing that we're seeing that's consistently being outsourced is their cybersecurity efforts. And that's huge because in 2 years, AI is going to automate all of the tier 1, actions that customers have. All of their patches are already, being updated through AI. A lot of their tier 1 help desk issues, like help me reset my password, or I can't get into my VPN. AI, specifically agentic AI, is being trained to do these actions. So in 2 years, a lot of the tier 1 low-level things that most of the MSPs or internal IT teams are doing for customers, that's going to be outdated. Where we're seeing a big shift and where partners are creating a ton of value is understanding the cybersecurity, posture of an organization. But they're all areas, and while the future is cybersecurity, we still have a lot of opportunity in kind of what we have. So when you hear your customers say something like, "Oh, our IT guy's overwhelmed," or keeping up with our security patches is a nightmare, they're usually talking about one of these 4 areas that we've bucketed out for you guys: the managed networks, managed systems, managed cybersecurity, or on their IT help desk. The goal here is to give you some confidence. You don't have to solve servers. You don't have to figure out how to go in and patch something or understand the primary function of a firewall. That's what they outsource. They're hiring companies to do that, companies like AccessOne. Your role as a partner is to simply uncover the need and connect them to the right resources, obviously in this case, us. And so taking a quick break here, before we get into the rest of the training, I just want to give you a snapshot of what sets AccessOne apart. And this isn't a product pitch. This is one slide of it, but it's important in the context of what we're talking about, because what differentiates us are things that resonate when customers decide to outsource their IT. These are answers of frustrations we hear all the time. So when we hear, "Oh, our MSP never calls us back," we can talk about AccessOne's industry-leading SLAs that offer real accountability and penalty when those SLAs aren't met. Or when a customer says, "Oh, I hate the call center shuffle of being, shipped out overseas," right? We get customers a point of contact, fully US-based support, not a maze that a customer has to navigate to flip through. Another frustration that we hear, I don't want to have to replace everything. Every time I talk to a managed IT company, they want me to rip out what already exists in place. That's a lot of money that we don't want to spend. And so another one of our differentiators is that we are very flexible, very easy to work with. We are not a big rip and replace shop. We're able to work with what the customer already has in place in 95% of the scenarios. And so when you're uncovering opportunities later, remember, like, these differentiators are a bridge between the challenges that you as a partner uncover and the confidence that the customers need to move forward. So what we're going to talk about today is walk you through our sales framework. And this is a framework that anybody on this call can implement. It's very, very easy to do. And we break it into 4 steps, right? One is signals. What are some of the buying signals? What are the things that you should be listening for? Second is questions. What questions can you ask to dive a little bit deeper? Maybe you're not hearing any signals and you want to be able to probe a little bit within your conversations. Third is your next steps. How do I take an opportunity that I've identified and pivot it and guide the partner into the next step? And the fourth is the handoff. How do I hand off to AccessOne or to another managed IT vendor and be able to turn that into money? And the beauty of it is when we talk about signals and we talk about spotting opportunities, it doesn't happen in one conversation. You guys are already there. You're working with the customer on a regular basis. It's really a matter of just keeping your ears open, because as we established, there's a clear case for ROI. There's a clear case for wanting to bring this into your portfolio to make more money. But the challenge is customers don't just walk up to you and say, "Hey, do you have an MSP that we could talk to and outsource?" Maybe, I mean, every once in a while, right? But it's similar to going to a doctor. Nobody goes to the doctor and says, "Hey, doctor, I think I have arthritis." They'll say, "No, my hands, I having a hard time. When things get cold, my fingers start to hurt," right? The doctor's job is to listen to some of the subtle things that a patient says in order to be able to guide them to whatever the source problem is. You as an advisor, same thing. Your goal is to listen to their frustrations, listen to the subtle things that they say, like, "Man, we keep having outages. We don't know what's going on." Or, every time we talk to our IT guy, he's completely overwhelmed. He doesn't have a lot of time for some of the stuff that we're doing. When you hear those frustrations, those are symptoms, right? That's your cue to be able to recognize those frustrations and convert them into a sales effort. The same sales effort that we're talking about that's going to bring you 4x ROI. And so customers will say a lot of things. Everyday complaints, in plain English, are opportunities for you as the partner, right? When they say something like, "Oh, we had another outage and it cost us big," I'm hearing we had another outage. What that converts into from an opportunity perspective is the customer lacks proactive monitoring. Obviously, outages keep happening because they don't have anything proactive and they're not, they don't have the right efforts in place, right? If they hear something about, our security patches, we're like 4 versions back, right? That's a weak security posture. They're not telling us their security posture is weak. They're just telling us how keeping up with it is a nightmare. Or when they say that the common one, our IT staff is very overwhelmed. We have 3 people supporting 250 employees, right? They've outgrown obviously what they have, and they're not looking at resources to bring in-house. Great opportunity for a co-managed or a fully managed IT situation. When they say things like, "Oh, we don't have visibility into our IT costs," or "We don't even know what we spend on IT," and it's a casual conversation, right? "What did you guys spend on IT last year?" And they're like, "Honestly, we're not even really sure." Like, that tells me their IT spend is unpredictable. And it's a great conversation for something that's monthly reoccurring, right? And so everyday complaints create opportunities. And so by keeping your ears open and listening for the signals, you can then spot the signal to unlock the ROI. So if I'm looking at 4x revenue than I did with this customer previously, without having to find all the new customers out there, same effort that I'm currently deploying. And if I know the demand exists, companies are already doing it, they're already spending their money with somebody somewhere, and they're already facing a ton of pressure from a growth perspective, from a compliance perspective, from a risk perspective, right? The pressure already exists. My role as an agent is to just find the opportunities that are hidden in plain sight. And the best way to do that is just to listen. We're talking about spotting the signals. And the only way to spot the signal is to hear it and to listen and to pay attention to what the customer is saying. Your role here isn't to solve the company's IT problems. Your role is to recognize these signals, connect them back to both your ROI and the customer's ROI, and then to bring us in. So how do we do that, right? When we spot the signals, or maybe we want to try to force a scenario where we want to see what the signals are, you got to dig a little bit deeper, right? We don't want to just say, the customer says, oh man, we don't know what our IT spend is. It's very unpredictable. My response isn't, oh, wow, that's tough, right? No, my response is to ask questions that are open-ended. And what you're going to notice here is that all of our discovery questions are business first. What I want you guys to do is not focus on the technical discovery. I want you to focus on business first discovery questions. The goal here isn't to get into the zeros and ones, and it's not to get them saying yes or no to things. What we want to do is we want to invite the customer to tell their story. And by telling us their story, they're going to naturally reveal pain points. And we're going to map those pain points directly to managed IT solutions. This is how you're already selling. And every partner that we've talked to, you're already selling this. You're selling network this way. You're selling cloud infrastructure this way. You're selling UCaaS and CCaaS or hardware. You're selling it the exact same way, right? You're asking about their impact. You're listening for the pain, and you're connecting it to the solution. So I just want to give you a few examples of how we do that here in the managed IT space. And there's 5 main categories, right? Productivity and people, risk and compliance, growth and scalability, financial responsibility, and then their support experience. And we're going to give you different questions, and I promise I'm not going through each and every one of these questions. We'll distribute this deck after the for everybody that joined the webinar. But the goal is to focus on business impact. So if we look at risk and compliance as a great example, right? It's a huge issue right now. Compliance organizations are cracking down. Customers recognize that compliance isn't just a thing they have to deal with, and risk is not a 4-letter word, right? It's an issue that needs to be addressed. So real simple, right? What steps are you taking to make sure that you're compliant? How do you know your systems are currently compliant? What steps are you guys currently taking? How do you address concerns when they come up? When you have a security incident, what do you guys do? What's the business process? When we talk about growth and scalability, right? What projects do you have from a business side? What growth are you looking at? And how do you know that your IT can handle the scale that you're taking? When we look at something like financial predictability, right? What are you going to spend in IT over the next 18 months? How are you sure? How do you handle anything unexpected? From a support experience, right? If I were to ask your employees what to do when they have an IT issue, what do you think your employee experience is? Do you think they're satisfied? Do you think they're frustrated? And so we're asking these questions that are all open-ended, that are all business-focused, so we can turn them into opportunities. So when somebody says, hey, when I ask a question of what steps are you taking to meet compliance requirements, and they say, oh man, like that is actually a nightmare for us because just keeping up with security patches is tough, right? What it means for me as a partner, as a seller, is that their security posture is weak and they need to look at managed IT security services. If we talk about support and we ask them a question, that about their help desk, and they say, when your employees have IT issues, what's their experience like? What's the employee experience look like? And they say, we have to explain the issue like 2 or 3 times to 2 or 3 different people before we can get something resolved. I'm hearing that and I'm saying, okay, obviously you have poor support. You need a dedicated help desk, right? The age-old one that says, oh, my IT guy is overwhelmed, right? I already immediately know that their IT staff is their IT is understaffed, right? They need a co-managed or a fully managed solution. These questions are not, groundbreaking, I don't think, for any of you. It's the same discovery motion you use in telecom It's the same discovery motion you use when selling hardware or software. The difference here is, again, the ROI is just 4 times greater. The key isn't being technical. The key is being curious. It's listening for signals, and it's knowing when to bring in somebody like an Access One. So let's take that and break it through some real life scenarios on how it works, right? And so in order to do that, I want you guys to follow a very simple framework or a 3-step process. 1, we're going to acknowledge. 2nd, we're going to frame it. 3rd, it's a next step. Same way we handle the discovery responses is the same way we also handle objections, which we'll also get into, right? Your job, again, is not to troubleshoot. It's to guide the customer towards managed IT and then partner with Access One in order to help you get there. So walk through a few scenarios, right? The famous our IT guy is overwhelmed. And we think it's cliche in the industry, but it's only cliche because we hear it frequently. Now we're too small of a staff. There's only a few of us. We can't handle these projects. So you as a partner, hey, acknowledge it, right? We hear it all the time. Companies are constantly telling us how they don't have enough resources in their IT department, especially as they grow. That's where, then again, you frame it, right? That's where managed IT can scale resources without adding headcount. Let's have a conversation and let's show you how a co-managed support model works in an environment like yours. We're listening to what they're saying and we're acknowledging it. Very important. We're framing the conversation and we're bringing in the next step, right? If they had a recent outage, we say, outages suck. Downtime, one of the biggest pain points we hear from companies. But don't worry, it's a solvable solution. We frame it. Managed IT is built around proactive monitoring to reduce these outages. The issue that you guys have isn't that, you're dealing with downtime. The issue is you don't have anything proactive to help you reduce these outages. Let's show you how a managed IT specialist can help you guys out. From a security perspective, right? Security compliance are top of mind. How can we show you how to ensure that your patches and protections are handled, that they're automated? Let's schedule a call to set it up. Going through one of my favorite ones is the cost predictability model, right? We don't have any visibility into our IT costs. And it amazes me how many companies, both large and small, don't really understand what they're spending from an IT perspective. And so when you hear that, particularly as you're selling another solution, right? These scenarios don't come up all in one conversation. You're listening to these things through the course of your interactions with the customer. And here's something like, we don't have any visibility into our IT costs. My response is, hey, we hear it all the time. The lack of predictability, it's got to be tough. It's tough to budget when you don't know what you're spending. By looking at a managed IT model, it can provide consistent, predictable billing. Let's have a conversation about it. And so there's a couple more scenarios that are peppered into here. But the goal, again, is we're listening for signals. We're acknowledging that these are frustrating. We're framing it as a totally solvable situation that they're talking about. Because I, as a partner, have a solution for you, right? And then we're pivoting into a next step with how can we have that conversation? Not only do we acknowledge that this is a concern, not only do we frame it as a solvable solution, and I've got something that you can have here, the next step is to have the next conversation. Let's talk about it, right? And so anytime in sales, you try to present the solution to a customer, you're going to hear an objection. If you are a career salesperson or your partner or you've done anything, and if you're still surprised that objections come up, there's probably no hope for you at this point. I think most of us know that objections are going to happen, right? So when you hear an objection, us pros, we don't freeze. It's not rejection, really. It's curiosity. They're conditioned to say no, 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 no. So your role, again, isn't to argue with the customer. It's not to get into the weeds. It's to back to the same framework, right? Acknowledge, reframe, next step. We acknowledge their concern. We reframe it in business terms, and we move them forward to the next step, which is having a conversation with the team. And that's a cycle that we're going to keep repeating, right? Acknowledge it, reframe it, next step. Just continue to repeat it. And so there's like 4 main objections that we hear at any given time. There's probably a couple of smaller ones, but I would say 80% of the time we hear the 4 same objections, right? 1, we already have an IT staff. Great. Awesome. Having internal expertise is super valuable. The fact is, most companies still bring in some sort of a managed IT provider to cover the gaps, the scale, and to free up their team from having to deal with all the fires and let them focus on next level strategy. Let's have a conversation about it and explore how a co-managed IT model can complement your team, right? The formula here is the same. We acknowledge it, we reframe it, we move them forward to a next step. Second objection that we get: it's too expensive. This is way, like, we just don't have the budget for it. We don't know how to, this is outside of our costs. We're too small, whatever the situation is, right? Again, we acknowledge it. Understand cost is important, right? You have to consider cost. But what we typically find, this is the reframe, is that downtime and inefficiency, particularly when as it relates to an unpredictable IT spend, cost companies way more than what we're looking at spending on a managed IT solution. Let us show you how a predictable monthly pricing model and the proper support to eliminate downtime can actually stabilize your budget and save you money in the long run, creating an ROI. Third objection that we hear, and we're going to follow the same framework, right? We acknowledge it, we're going to reframe it, we're going to move them to the next steps, right? We have an IT provider, we're happy with who we're working with. We hear that a lot. We understand companies, especially at your size, are probably 95% of companies out there are already working with somebody. But a lot of customers still feel that having a second perspective, especially around security and compliance, has been super, super valuable. So this isn't to pressure you, but what we can do is we can take a look at what you're currently doing with your IT vendor and just give you an idea of whether or not you're getting the best value. Notice what we're saying there. We're not trying to troubleshoot any technical problems. We're not trying to trash their current provider, right? We're just trying to show them that, hey, sometimes one provider isn't enough. Let's take a look and see if you're getting value. All of these are business conversations that we want you guys to have. And the fourth objection that we get, hey, we're not big enough. We're only 50 people, we're 100 people, we're 10 people maybe, right? And that's, we're not big enough for managed IT. We do everything in-house. Awesome. I mean, I'm glad to hear that you do it in-house. I'm glad to hear that you think you're in a good spot, right? But the reframe here is the reality is that cyber threats and compliance pressures, they hit everybody. Big businesses, small businesses. It's not just the large enterprise that are constantly facing these risks and the tasks. Let's have a conversation. Let's show you how to utilize managed IT to right size support without overspending, right? The key takeaways here is that we're asking business first questions across the board. We're not focusing on the technical. We're not saying, oh, what kind of firewall do you have? What kind of router? What's your RTO? What's your RPO? We're not asking these questions. We're about business questions, right? We're listening. We're asking questions that are business related, and we're acknowledging that the demand already exists. We know the demand is there. They don't have to tell us the demand is there because customers will never tell you what they're looking for, right? But knowing the industry, knowing what customers are doing, we know the demand already exists. We know they're struggling with growth. We know they're struggling with compliance. So by knowing that the demand is there, listening for the signals that are expressed in everyday frustrations, and asking open-ended questions, we're able to be the trusted advisor and to show the customer, why this conversation is really important. Because your role matters in all of this, right? You are the partner, you are the trusted advisor. You're uniquely positioned to be able to spot the opportunity and to guide the conversation to bring in somebody like AccessOne to help drive ROI for you. And so now that we have all this information, what do we do, right? What's the next step? What practical, tangible actions can we take outside of this webinar in order to find the opportunities to uncover it? So I say this. Number one, start small, right? Don't try to have this entire conversation in one sit down. Don't call your customer, email them, be like, hey, we would love to have a deep dive discovery about your managed IT environment. That doesn't do any good. It's going to scare your customer and you're going to sound like a pushy salesperson, right? Start small. Try asking one or two of these questions in the next conversation. If you're currently in a network project or a voice project, or you're talking about a hardware refresh, have a conversation. What are you guys doing from a security and compliance perspective? who supports you from a managed IT perspective, and what are their typical response times? Ask one or two very non-threatening conversations and see what you hear, right? When you uncover the pain point, don't try to solve it yourself. Having to be the expert all the time isn't necessary, right? Bring in Access One. The framework is simple, right? Listen for the signals, ask the questions, continue to pivot to next steps, and then you hand it off to us and let us create value for your customers. That's how you unlock ROI. You start small, ask one or two questions, and then reframe the conversation for a setup to bring in your partner like Access One to be able to have a more deeper conversation with our solutions architects and with our engineers and with all the resources that we have. Now, the emphasis here is this is kind of what makes the model work, right? Partnerships are the difference. You're the advisor. Your customers already trust you. We are the team that brings the IT expertise and can deliver behind you. Being able to solve problems together doesn't just deliver outcomes, it strengthens your relationship with your customer, and more importantly, drives 4x revenue into your pocket. And that is the power of our partnership. So that being said, thank you guys for joining, and we're happy to open it up for any questions.